Yo, what's going on, everybody? Good morning. Good morning. Let you guys slide in. For those that are awake and those that are listening in, just give a minute for you guys to come in as we get ready to talk about this. I don't plan on holding y'all long today on this subject matter, but I do want to talk about it though. If you can, please share the link. Appreciate it. Just give me a quick second here. Let me share it as well. And started momentarily. Just why does it change to that? Check. Okay, the audio should be back where it should be. All right. I was trying to just share the link while the music was playing, but apparently, let me just double check, make sure the audio's back working. Or if y'all still choppy. Did it freeze and crash for you guys? Let me check everything. Just give me a quick second. I think it's back to working. Let me check my audio. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Check my audio. Okay, I think we back now. Okay. Okay, everything's working good now, I think. All right. Let's go ahead and start it then. All right, here we go, guys. Check 1 2 1 2. Let me just make sure this is working for y'all. Yo, what's going on? It's Brotha J podcast. Brotha J podcast. Brotha J apologetics. Let's go. 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 Brotha J podcast. Yo, what's going on, brothers and sisters? It's your Brotha J. It's early in the morning, but I wanted to go ahead and do this and get it out the way. And Lord's will, for anybody who may come and watch this later on, they'll be able to, see this. But it's moved to come on here and talk about this subject. I didn't know when I was going to talk about it. I knew eventually I would because of it. But it's a very important thing to discuss. I'm just refreshing things so I can make sure everything's on my screen. I'll be able to see you guys' comments and everything. Okay. And it's about, if you haven't heard about it yet, there was there's riots going on in Minnesota again. For those that know, the George Floyd case is going on with the officer. They've yet to make a ruling on that, so people are waiting on that. And then not too far from there, got more riots going on because of another incident we're gonna talk about tonight. But it's the same. It's the same common theme though. I saw a comment that was made by an individual online about the incident we're gonna be talking about, and the comment was, "And people wonder why black folks is exhausted." And I replied to that person, but um, my reply was, "Are we, talking about black folks, exhausted of doing evil though, and bringing calamity on ourselves?" Um, it's the same. I think I'm pretty sure I talked about this when we talked about George Floyd. When we talked about what was this name? The sister got shot in the apartment. I forgot her name. As well as the other brother that was jogging. I know them, but their names is left my mind right now. But it was a point that was made that it's the same reoccurring thing over and over and over again, right? You have these interactions between the police, specifically white police, and black people. And irregardless of the life that the black person lived, and irregardless of the crime that they're in the midst of, and irregardless of whatever it is that they do during the encounter, all the focus goes upon what the officers did. And for, specifically black Christians, because that's what I'm really concerned about. Because these are the people that's majority of my friends on Facebook, and they're the ones that's making these comments. Begin the same round of complaining, and start hearing talks about white supremacy again. You start hearing things about slavery. You start hearing things about, how whites treat blacks, and the cops are out to kill all the black people type of talk coming from black Christians. I've seen black preachers do the same thing. They fall into the Black Lives Matter stuff, start wearing their shirts that are based off exaggerations and proven lies that were admitted to by the person who said it originally. Like, I can't breathe. These different things, and it causes the brothers and sisters in the faith mindsets to be focused on the wrong stuff, and they get emotionally involved in things they shouldn't, and really has no business, and they start to complain and don't realize what is actually taking place. And we're going to talk about that. So for those that don't know, there was a shooting, brother named Daunte Wright. I'm going to share this article right quick. Now, anytime things like this happen and people post these kind of photos, normally if I was to be able to, you guys can't see my hand, but my hand is covering the picture with him with the gun and only leaving him the picture with the baby. Because in the news, they only show those photos when they're like with the baby or when they graduated or something like that. The photo on the right that normally in the news articles and on the screens when they're doing the whole black man killed by the white cop stuff, they don't show the one on the right. Because, well, that puts them into a bad image. And, people don't want those kind of images to be on TV because then it causes people's mindsets to be like, well, dang, this guy was a menace to society. He was an evil guy. Look at him. He's flying his gun online, probably talking that garbage hip-hop talk. And then in some people's minds, they be like, he deserved to got killed. So they don't show those pictures because they're like, they don't want to have that kind of mindset where people don't care. They share the one on the left, and instead on the right, it'll be like the picture of the white cop that killed them. And then they have the whole black man killed by the cops thing. They do that for emotional reasons. All right. But this article shows both pictures because this is very important. The brother was young. He was 20 years old. If he professed to have been a Christian, he didn't live like one. The photo on the right, well, video, it's a screenshot of a video. is how he was, how he lived. All right. Young brother in the streets, messing with the girls, carrying pistols, and all the other things that come with that. And a lot of times when it comes to these type of incidents happens, people want to not deal with those type of things. And I understand in a case, certain things doesn't matter, but we are not, or we shouldn't be, regular carnal thinking beings. We should be spiritual thinking beings because we're born of God, we're children of light. So we must look at the total thing, and we must view all of this and process it through the eyesight of our God, who is the ultimate judge. Then we will see what actually has taken place, and we will see why Christians shouldn't involve themselves emotionally with these type of things. The only reason why I'm dealing with this is because it's brought up among the church and people are acting crazy and saying crazy stuff. So it's to bring people's minds back as a shepherd to where it should be at. So we must look at the total thing and realize the picture on the right was his character. Evildoer. I'm not saying he deserved to got killed in one sense. We'll talk about what we deserve truly in another sense. But that was his character. The baby on the left, I'm pretty sure, I'm taking a guess, I don't know for sure, that this is his child. Maybe his child, I don't know. All right. I don't think the brother was married. Most brothers who live these type of lives aren't married, but they do make babies. Okay. But I won't go further on those speculations. They may be true, may be false. But we do know that on the right, this was his character. This is how he lived. I want to read this article before I play the video, all right, of the actual encounter that led to his death. It says riots have broken out in Minneapolis, Minnesota after the Brooklyn Center police involved shooting of 20-year-old Daunte Wright. Wright, who is black, or at least biracial, was driving in Brooklyn, because his mom's white, his dad's black, was driving in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, with inspired tags and quotation marks something hanging from his rearview mirror, possibly an air freshener, which by accounts, that's what it was. All right, but the article said something because obviously a little tiny air freshener hanging from your thing can look like many things when you're a car driving behind you. All right. Either way, the inspired tags obviously is unacceptable. But with inspired tags and something hanging from his rearview mirror, possibly an air freshener, police noticed his tags and ran the plates. They came back after they ran it that Mr. Wright has a failure to appear warrant, meaning the authorities are looking for him to take him to jail on prior charges of misdemeanor gun possession, meaning that gun in that video up there, that screenshot of that video, it was unlawful for him to have. All right, so he was committing an evil. He was underage, wasn't allowed to have a weapon. And he had gotten caught with it prior and got charged with it and had a court date set for it, but he didn't show up. All right. So because he didn't show up on that and another charge, therefore they put out a warrant for him. So whenever they came across him or arrested him, wherever he was at, wherever they found him at, they would arrest him there. Whether it had been at a traffic stop, whether it had been driving like he was, or whether it had been at the grocery store. Wherever it would be at that they would catch him, they were to arrest him if they, that they understood that it was a warrant out for him. But Wright had a failure to appear warrant on prior charges of misdemeanor gun charge, possession, and fleeing the police. So he has a history of resisting the authorities and the powers that God has set up, and of doing evil by having weapons underage. All right. And not only that when caught, he had no remorse for his actions because he didn't show up to the case. All right. As a result of the warrant, the bad tags, police pulled Daunte Wright over. Body camera footage of the incident starts with Daunte Wright out of the car, probably because of the warrants. While Wright is being handcuffed, he squirms out of the arrest position and gets back into his car. possibly with the intent to flee again. This is the moment where things go completely bad for Mr. Wright and the officers involved in the arrest. And it is by accounts and by video, it was an accident. It was a tragedy that happened. But as Christians, we must understand that there's nothing that's that happens just because. Everything under the sun happens at the time our God appoints it, that Yahweh appoints it. So from a human standpoint, we could say this was a tragedy and an accident, but from God's standpoint, it was on purpose. And we'll talk more about that in a second. And for Christians, it's important that we process this way and then understand that this is taking place outside the body. But yet there's a warning for the body in this. And that's why we live today. So this is truly a tragedy that happened. Obviously, his family's grieving. There's riots, which all the people involved are guilty in the eyesight of God. So if anything happens to them, if they get shot in the middle of the night while looting a store and all that kind of stuff because they upset what happened to Wright, they deserved it. God sent that calamity upon them. If they get maced because they passed the curfew and they're out there so-called peaceful protesting, but bringing calamity and all that stuff, and protesting in general, just because America give you the right, don't mean you got the right from God. So you never have a right from God to be insubordinate to the authorities, to riot, to do any of those things. These are evils that God does permit to happen to bring about his will, but the people doing it are doing evil. All right. So you never have a right in the eyesight of God to go out in the street and cause havoc and unrest. All right. You never have that. So just because there's a law that's written that you can peacefully protest, quotation mark, and go in the middle of the street, maybe block the traffic on the interstate or something like that, it doesn't mean that you should in the eyesight of God. All right. So, anyway, let's play a video right quick, and then we'll talk further on this. This is what happened from one camera's officer's body cam footage, and you can kind of hear the other cop talking to him. All right, so they ran the tags and stopped him. All right, let's see what unfolds here.
Push the space bar and it'll play.
For those that can't hear, the cop was telling him to get out. He was letting him know why he had to get out and why he was getting arrested. So the cop's trying to put the handcuffs on him, but it's tough for him to do it when he tries to start then doing it. He's resisting and not letting them put it on. The cop was trying to pull him out of the car, but the brother was holding on to the steering wheel.
Can you turn the lights back on, please?
We're trying to determine whether or not to terminate this officer.
As you can hear, the officer, while struggling with Mr. Wright, shouts, "Taser, taser," several times. That is part of the officer's training prior to deploying a taser, which is a less lethal device. That is done to make her partners aware, as well as the subject, that a taser deployment will be imminent. During this encounter, however,
I want to pause it right quick because I want y'all to pay close attention to what the officer about to describe. There's some people, some Christians online as well, sharing these photos of guns and tasers, and they're choosing the most drastic examples to try to make it seem like the woman meant to kill him. And they're showing you guys pictures of like black guns, yellow tasers, black guns, maybe red tasers or something like that, to show there's a clear, distinct difference between a gun and a taser. All right. And so they're like, this cop didn't know. You tell me this cop really didn't know? And so they're trying to insinuate that the cop meant to do it, what she did. Now, y'all can hear from the footage, the cop clearly was shaken up about it and was, she had an authentic reaction to this. So the reaction shows that this was actually an accident. All right. Everybody was surprised by it and everybody was distraught about it. But people online sharing these drastic photos. All right, don't y'all share those photos. Do not share those photos because not all tasers are yellow and red. Okay. Now, until they showed the taser that the cop had, which I've seen tasers on cops, like actual cops, I've seen it with my own eyes, where their tasers are like black. Okay. So, and depending on the model of a taser, it's shaped like a gun. Like, I know people's feelings are involved with this, but you can't disregard reality that there are some tasers that do look like guns and they're black. So, not they're sharing these photos, trying to paint the imagery, and Christians shouldn't be involved in doing that. I know you got opinions and feelings, but you're subject to God's commandment. And unless you got evidence, you're not to share this stuff or insinuate and get people's emotions involved in your own personal ideas, how you feel about something. But listen to what the cop describes, because people are like, well, if she reached for the taser, there was a gun, she should clearly know the difference, and blah, 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 blah. Okay? So, listen what he describes that they train these officers and where they wear things at and why they wear it that way. All right?
Drew their handgun instead of their taser. For informational purposes, we train with our handguns on our dominant side and our taser on our weak side.
This is very important, which means is whatever hand she is, which she's going to explain. If she's left-handed, your gun is on your left side. If you're right-handed, your gun is on your right side. All right? Talk about your trigger finger, whichever one you're dominant with. In my case, my gun would be on my left side. Though I'm right-handed, I write with my right hand, but my dominant hand is my left hand. So if I shoot a gun, my trigger finger is with my left hand. So my gun would be on my left side. Why? Because your dominant hand, and if it's life or death, you need your dominant hand, okay? But in a situation where there's a tussle and your brain is everywhere, you don't know what this guy's going to do because he's tussling with you. You already got to arrest him because he's known to have weapons and to flee police, and now he's fleeing police. It's going on. Your first reaction is whatever your muscle memory is. All right? She should have done her weak hand. That's why this is the accident. But because of the present moment, and you guys got to understand, I know everybody only thinks about the person. Nobody wants to think about the cops in their minds. All right. Yes, they're trained, but they're also human beings. All right. And their lives flash before their eyes too, because cops get killed too. I know everybody think that it's just black people getting shot out here by cops, but cops get killed too by people. They get killed by black people too. All right. So their eyes are flashing before their eyes as well, but they have to be psychologically numb in a sense to where even though their life is flashing before their eyes, they can still make wise, conscious decisions and pull out the right weapon. Okay? Now, people will insinuate she had no reason to be afraid, or no cop had to be afraid because she had partners right there. Guns don't care if you got partners. Clearly, the brother didn't care that she had partners because he tried to get away from all of them. All right. So let's not do the assumption thing. These are all human beings have reactions. They're all controlled by God ultimately, and they're moved by the flesh or the spirit. That's what it comes down to. We as Christians know that. All right. So don't let your feelings about what you're witnessing cloud your processing ability in God. So they're trained with their dominant hand is the side where their gun will be. And the weak hand is where their taser will be. And that's for a reason. Because when their life is on the line, you don't need to be using your weak hand that's not even your trigger finger to pull out the weapon. And then you got to swap hands real fast so you can, every second counts. So they put it on the dominant hand. All right. And that's where your strength lies in your muscle memory with your dominant hand, not your weak hand. All right.
If you're right-handed, you carry your firearm on your right side, and you carry your taser on the left. This is done purposefully and is trained. As I watch.
All right, and he's going to go into the fact that they've ordered an independent investigation, which they should, which is also protocol. They should do that. They should do eval on the cop and all that kind of stuff. They'll do all of that stuff, and they'll handle all of that. All right, but I wanted to show you guys this so you can see what happened. So as we talk about what happened, matter of fact, let's do this now. Let's go back on the video. Now, remember what the article said. All right. Let's not forget it. He's riding. Cop just randomly doing their shift. See a car. Cop decides, I'm going to run the tags on this car. All right. Because they technically can run the tags on everybody they drive behind during that day. But they don't do that all day long. All right. They got other things to watch out for, too. So they just decide. And remember, nothing happens, on a whim. Everything's purposely in God's plan. Everything that happens under the sun. So a cop is riding. God moves them, run the tags of this particular vehicle. They run the tags of this vehicle. Of course, they don't hear a voice that says, hey, I am God. Run the tags of this vehicle. It doesn't happen that way. All right. The Lord moves their conscience and their mind. All right. Without the person realizing it, to do certain actions. All right. Like he did with Pharaoh when he hardened Pharaoh's heart. All right. Pharaoh didn't hear a voice. Hey, Pharaoh, I'm God. I'm hardening your heart right now. Like, that's not what he heard. All right. The Lord moved him and hardened his heart without Pharaoh knowing it and how the Lord did it. All right. So, and Pharaoh couldn't resist that. It came as a natural inclination to Pharaoh to be stubborn against Moses. But we know why he was stubborn, because God told Moses, I will make him stubborn. All right. You don't need to argue about how God made him stubborn. The point is God made him stubborn. All right. And he had a right to do it since Pharaoh was God's. All right. Was God's creation. He could do what he pleased with what is his. So he moves these cops to run the tag of this particular vehicle. This particular vehicle is the vehicle in which Daunte Wright, a brother who has a warrant out for his arrest, is driving that day. All right. They run the tags. It comes back. Hey, the person whose vehicle this has a warrant. And it shows them what the warrant is for. Okay. And the warrant is that misdemeanor gun charge. So he's known to have weapons, which is unlawful for him to have, and fleeing the police. So this is a person that most case scenario, we have a good chance that he's going to try to flee us now, because that's what he's done. So they stop him. They come up there. The cop tells him, you can hear it faintly. If you watch the video like in first person, I don't know how many of y'all can hear it because it was low, but if you turn the volume up, the cop tells him, hey, we need you got the vehicle. And he starts to explain to him, why and all that kind of stuff. Daunte gets out. The cop immediately turns him around. That's the sign to let you know there's a warrant out for your arrest. When the cops immediately tell you to get out the car, and when you get out, they immediately turn you around to arrest you. There's no questioning. There's no test that they're doing. They know they need to arrest you. All right, and so that's what they're doing immediately, because there's a warrant out. So now let's get to the video and walk through this again. He's telling him to get out. And he's telling him to put his phone down. They immediately turn him around, let him know there's a warrant for his arrest. All right. He's getting his hands in positions to put the cuffs on. He starts to try to put it on, but Daunte won't let him do it. He's already starting to resist. All right. And this is why the cop begins to come closer, because the warrant already told them this guy is known to flee the police. So they don't want him to get away. So when they see that he's not letting the cop put the handcuffs on, they know he's being volatile already. All right? So they're trying to talk him, let me put the handcuffs on you. So far in the video, no cop is like disrespecting him or roughing him up against the car, pushing his head against the roof. Like, none of this type of stuff is going on. They're just simply trying to put the cuffs on him so they could take him into custody. He then jerks from him and try to jump in his car so he can hear him hit the gas. All right? So you can hear him get the gas. And he would have hit the gas had he not had the car in park when they pulled him out the car. So he jumped in trying to put the car in park. Put the car in drive so he could hurt him take off. Even though the cops were there with his door wide open. He would have ran their feet over or something like that if he could. Because he was just trying to get away and flee the cops. So even up to this point, the cop that was dealing with him that he's fighting against hasn't pulled out any weapons or anything like that. The cop is simply trying to yank him back out of the car. All right? So the cop is warning, I'll tase you, I'll tase you, I'll tase you. The other cop is still trying to pull him out the car, but as you can see, the brother's still trying to get in the car to take off. He's still resisting the authorities. The cop starts yelling, tase you, I'll tase you, I'll tase you, I'll tase you, which is what they do when they're getting ready to deploy a taser, all right? And they do that to let the person know they're about to get tased and for their cops, partners to get out the way because the taser is a lot of voltage and it can send you into cardiac arrest and things like that. So it's for the safety of a partner and for the person that's about to get tased to know they're about to get tased to stop what they're doing. And if they don't, they're about to get it. But she pulls the trigger, ends up shooting him. She immediately, after shooting him, as you can see by this picture, by the video, reaches out to him. She realizing the mistake that she made. He's not dead yet. He drives some blocks before he actually dies. And even after being shot, he flees. He's not dead. That's not why the car's rolling off. This ain't a dead body on the gas and the car just rolls off and crashes. He drives for blocks before he crashes and finally bleeds out and dies. So even after being shot, he flees. All right. The cop, oh my God, I shot him and blah, blah. Y'all hear the audio. All right. Now, from a human standpoint, she's saying she made a mistake. The investigation will prove all these things. The video seems to side with her story that she made a mistake, a costly one, but nevertheless a mistake. Whatever charge may come from that, the law will deal with that. All right, the law will deal with that. So from her standpoint, it was a mistake, but we're believers. We shouldn't operate and get emotional off of the human standpoint when it comes to outsiders, meaning outside the body. All right. Because as the apostle said, what business is it of mine to judge those outside the body when they do evil? God judges those outside the body when they do evil. But as is written, you remove the evil person from among you, meaning we judge those within the body that do evil. This brother was outside the body. He did evil, and God judged him. God is the one who brought judgment. You might not like the fact that the cop pulled the weapon and didn't pull the taser, pulled the gun and didn't pull the taser. But as believers, you should understand there are no such things as accidents from God's point of view. All right? If this was an accident truly from this woman's standpoint, then this would be called ignorant sin. Where she may be guilty of something law-wise, but she didn't mean it. It wasn't malicious. Nevertheless, you be guilty. It doesn't mean you're innocent just because it was ignorant. So, her mistake was a costly one, and she, like the person mentioned in the comment section, there's a good chance she's gonna go to prison for this. It's a costly mistake. All right, it's a costly mistake. This very well may be the case for her. Or it may not. I don't know. But she might. And if she does, then according to law, that's right. Because she, being the authority structure, should, and the training she's had and how long she's been on the force for 26 years, I don't know if she's ever been in that particular situation before in her 26 years. But, experience should bring about composure. Nevertheless, she makes a mistake. For the Brotha Wright, I know people a lot of time when these kind of incidents happen, they don't like to talk about this part, but it matters. Okay. None of this, the accident that occurred, his death that occurred, him getting shot that occurred, none of that would have happened had this brother lived upright. Had he not had a weapon way in advance, underage, where he would then get in trouble with the police, who didn't kill him at that time, by the way, to where he had to have a court date, and then he dishonored the judge and not show up. Where he then tries to flee the police, probably all in one, this probably was all the same incident. But try to flee the police. Court case set, doesn't show up. Letting us know that during these 2 charges, he was not in jail. Because if you're in jail, you got no choice. They're going to bring you to court. All right. So he wasn't in jail, though he had these charges, and he voluntarily didn't show up to the court date. Therefore, a warrant is now out for his arrest, and they're looking for him. When they finally find him, which Mr. Wright didn't know he'd be found that day. He didn't know he would be found that day. To him, it was just a regular day. He had a female in the car. Don't know if it was a baby mama or a girlfriend or something like that. All right. All I know is from his own mother's testimony, there was a girl in the car with him that day. All right. And she was the one who told the mama that her son had got shot when his mama kept calling his phone. All right. After the fact. So we know there's a female in there. Relation of the female, we don't know. I don't know at this point for sure. All I know is a female in the car. All right. Which was a super dangerous situation because she could have got shot by accident. All right. So he didn't know what he had done in the past, the evil life he'd been living. He didn't know that would catch up to him that day. To him, it was just a regular day out for a drive, going wherever he was going or coming back home from where he was coming from. But the Lord had police out that day. And those police, out of all the thousands of people that drive on the road each day, ends up behind his car, runs his tags. And he just so happened to have a warrant out for his arrest. Instead of them run the tags and the tags just come back, it's it's not out of date. And then the cops just kind of like veer off and be like, okay. These tags were outdated, which caused the cops to have to stop him. And when they stop him, because they ran the tags and it's out of date, which is already one law broken, now a warrant shows up with it that tells them you need to arrest this individual. Go up to the car, it's him in there. Immediately take him out to arrest him, but the brother resists, as he's done in the past. And as a result, they start to tussle and things start getting very volatile. He's trying to hold on to the steering wheel so they can't pull him out while trying to put the car in drive so that he can drive off, possibly breaking one of the officer's legs or arms of the officer who had his car in his arms in the car. Cops trying to pull him out. As you can see with his legs, he's still resisting them, trying to get away. So resisting, clearly. No ifs, ands, or buts. And even after being accidentally shot, he takes off anyway and drives a couple of blocks before he finally dies. He didn't know it would catch up with him that day. All right. But the Lord gives these warnings. At the end of the day, the Lord brought judgment on him. This is what occurred. What you just witnessed is what the apostle said would happen. God judges those outside when they do evil. He judges those in the islands by erupting volcanoes, sending earthquakes, swallowing folks, wildfires, burning up their homes, burning them up. Volcano ash causing their lungs to get clogged and they collapse and die. The volcano lava burning them up, sending a flood, a tsunami, sweeping them away into the sea and they drown. The Lord sends these things and brings these calamities upon the wicked. He moves evil men to do evil things, to bring the death to the wicked and calamity to a nation. The Lord does all these things. And when he does it, for those that are his people, you should not be upset. you should be silent. For your Father has spoken and brought calamity upon the wicked. What you just witnessed was God's justice. But the Lord doesn't get up from his seat in heaven and appear as a big beam of light every time he does this. Sometimes he moves the elements that he created, like the volcanoes and the rain and the waters, or shaking the earth. Sometimes he moves the men that he created, and he has sent robbers to take away your cattle and to kill your servants, like he did with Job. The Lord will bring it many different ways because he created many different vessels to bring it. If you hate the truth, the Lord will send a delusion. He will cause you to believe a lying teacher and have you spend the rest of your life following this false teacher, believing it's true, just so he will destroy you in the end because you hated the truth. If you want to bring judgment on you like he wanted to do with Ahab, how did he bring it? He sent the lion spirit into the mouth of the prophets to cause Ahab to make a certain decision that would put him in a certain battle to where the Lord would bring certain death. What we witnessed was God's justice upon the wicked. This is what the Bible talks about all the time. The world makes it black, white. It doesn't matter because God made the white cop. God made the black man. Don't follow heathens in their carnal way of thinking, and they always want to put it white against black. The blacks are the prey, and the whites are the predators. Because if you want to look at it that way, blacks get killed at a way higher rate by other blacks. It's got nothing to do with skin tone. If you're in the hood, living an evil life, the Lord will move the heart of an evil hood man who is your rival. And where you got up that morning and brushed your teeth and said, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, you didn't know that at a certain time during that day, the Lord would visit you and bring about your death. You weren't careful how you lived and walked in this life. Instead, you lived carelessly, doing what you wanted to do and being wise to do evil. And the Lord who made you had enough. So he said, I'm going to judge him today. Your life ends, and then you stand before him, and then you open up your eyes in eternal torment, waiting for the day to be thrown into the lake of fire. While the people alive on the earth are trying to make it, oh, it's black versus white, or that's all they really care about on the news. Even though it happens both ways, but they only care in one. The scenario, think about it, guys. The scenario was too good. You got the George Floyd case going on, which was already black versus white. And that trial is currently going on. And here in the same state, not too far away, another white cop accidentally kills a black man. How could they not report that? How could they not make that the main topic of the news so they can connect the two? But irregardless of the case, even if they connected the two, even if Derek Chauvin goes to prison or whatever the case is, even if justice is perverted, which is an evil thing, yet if it happens, God appointed it to happen. For what purpose? Some good purpose, even if we don't know it. But the Lord said this regarding the wicked. Deuteronomy chapter 32, 35. Have I not stored up these things, sealed it up within my vaults? Vengeance is mine. I will repay. In due time, their foot will slip, meaning those wicked doers who plan evil. For their day of disaster is near. Not idle, is near. And their doom is coming quickly. When you least expect it. Just like Christ said, for it should be as the days of Noah when he returned. When people saying peace, then calamity sneaks up on them. He said, I'm coming like a thief in the night. You least expect it. You didn't plan for his visitation. You wasn't looking for his visitation. You living life the way you want it because it's your life. Even though you were created, but it's your life. So you did what you wanted to do. And as we see with the brother Daunte, he didn't plan to die that day, but the Lord planned it. And that's why it happened. For it's written, every man is appointed to die once and then the judgment. And as Solomon said, there's a time to be born and a time to die. Who appoints those times? God. And if he appointed the time, he also appointed the way you died. But the wicked don't take these things into account. They live life the way that they want to. They don't fear God. They don't keep his commandments. So they do evil. They plan evil against God's people. They continually sin against the Lord and rebel against him, because what you must understand is that the evil life that the brother Daunte was living and the evil things that he had done, yeah, he might have done to men, but he did to God. For God commanded him to submit to the ruling authorities and do those things that he tell you to do for your good. But he didn't do that. And the Christian may say, well, we didn't all do it. We didn't. We all deserve what brother Daunte got. In one sense, you could say because of the crime, according to his relation with men, he didn't deserve to die. That's why this is called an accidental killing. Because of his crime, they just needed to arrest him, not kill him. And even after he was resisting, they only needed to try to pull him out the car, maybe tase him, so they can get him out the car to arrest him. But instead, he ended up getting accidentally shot and then died. So in this relation to men, and according to the law that he broke of the land, he didn't deserve to die. But what about God? He sinned against God. And any sin against God deserves death. Deserves death. That's why when we sin and we ask the Lord for forgiveness, we wait for his mercy, meaning something we don't deserve. For every evil thought, we don't deserve to live. For every evil action, we don't deserve to live. We deserve to die. And God proved that in the garden. For it did not take Adam to make many mistakes. He only committed sin once. And then the fall took place. Then sin came in. Then death came in. For every sin in the law, whether it was ignorant sin or whether it was malicious sin, blood was required. Whether it was the blood of an animal or a person's blood. The law itself proved every act of sin, no matter how small it was or great it was, deserves death immediately. People might look in the law of God and go, well, according to the law, you only had to bring a sacrifice. Yeah. An animal that was once alive that had to die. Just because you didn't die, but a turtle did, or a lamb did, you should not look at that as something simple and easy. For you had to bring the sacrifice alive to God, not dead to God. They didn't kill a lamb way off somewhere and brought its dead corpse to the priest. They brought it alive. The animal was bang, bang, or whatever other sound an animal makes that they were sacrificing. And then the priest had to put their hands on him and break his neck or take something and chop his head off. This is a gruesome thing. Imagine you take your dog that you love, but you got to sacrifice it to God. Now you got to take something and kill it. And it wasn't because of the animal. It was because of you. This ain't no light thing. This ain't no easy thing to do. You shouldn't view animal sacrifices under the law as, well, when you lied, as some people do, like some of these corrupt preachers be doing when they want to preach that whole white supremacy stuff. And they want to talk about how the white man's against the black man and blah, 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 blah. And then they'll start bringing up the law and talk about even in God's law, when you committed that kind of crime, all you had to do is bring a sacrifice. Not realizing the weight of what they just said. They're trying to make it seem simple because they're trying to do this whole black stuff. Not realizing that the law that they just referenced Where they say, well, when you committed, even in God's commandment, when you committed that kind of act, it didn't result in being stoned to death. You just had to bring a sacrifice. Yeah, exactly. When a man lied, there was a day of atonement for that. When a man stole, and the law only required that he give it back or give 7 times what he took, but it also required an atonement. There was a day of atonement for that. A woman, when she had her uncleanly cycle, or when she had a male or woman child, had days of uncleanness. And after those days of uncleanness, there was required an atonement for her. Something that happens to her naturally. Bringing birth, bringing a child into the world required death. Do you understand that? Let me show you it right quick, just so you can see the weight of what the law of God showed us about ourselves. Give me a quick second. I'm trying to, there we go. Actually, I want to go to the other one that I was just looking at. Give me a quick second, guys. I'm going to just pull it up here. All right, my iPad's acting a little stupid. All right, let me. All right. Here we go. Leviticus chapter 12. All right, let me share my screen. In verse, let's see here. Let's start here. So you guys can see the weight of this. Leviticus 12, I'm going to start at verse 1. It says, Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, saying, When a woman gives birth and delivers a male child, then she shall be unclean for 7 days. As she is in the days of her menstruation, she shall be unclean. Talking about ceremonially. Then on the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. And she shall stay at home in her condition of blood purification for 33 days. She shall not touch any consecrated thing, nor enter the sanctuary until the days of her purification are complete. Meaning, anything that got to do with holiness, she cannot come near or touch because she's unclean. This is the letter of the law. But after we read the letter of the law, we're going to go back to see what God just told you. She shall not touch any consecrated thing, nor enter the sanctuary until the days of her purification are completed. But if she gives birth to a female child, then she shall be unclean for 2 weeks, as in her menstruation, and she shall stay at home in the condition of her blood for 66 days. When the days of her purification are complete, for a son or a daughter, she shall bring to the priest at the doorway of the tent of meeting a 1-year-old lamb as a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove as a sin offering. Then he shall offer it before the Lord and make an atonement for her, and she shall be cleansed from the flow of her blood. This is the law for her who gives birth to a child, whether male or female. But if she cannot afford a lamb because she's poor, then she shall take 2 turtle doves or 2 young doves, the one as a burnt offering and the other as a sin offering, and the priest shall make atonement for her, and she will be clean, meaning ceremonially. What we just read was the letter of the law. Bringing a literal animal, coming, staying at home for a certain amount of days until your ceremonial days of impurity is past. But the apostle said, ye that desire to be under the law, meaning this letter here, do you not hear what it says? What did God just finish telling man, or in this case, women, since it's focusing on women here? What did he just tell the woman? What did the law just tell us? Let's read it again. When a woman gives birth, something she does by nature, didn't God say in the beginning, be fruitful and multiply? When a woman gives birth, and my wife, if you are listening, can you please attend to our child that keeps yelling in the background? Help. I don't know why he keeps yelling at. Give me a quick second, guys. Thank y'all for your patience. Um, when a woman gives birth and delivers a male child, then she shall be unclean ceremonially. This is important. This is huge. She shall be unclean, and that unclean means ceremonially, for 7 days, as she is in the days of her menstruation. She shall be unclean. Then on the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised, which Mary did with Christ. So this is how we know the whole Roman Catholic doctrine that she was immaculate, untainted by sin, is false, because she had in the book of Luke to obey this law, which proves she was unclean. Ceremonially, she was unclean, which means something way greater than that in a second, which we explain right now. And she shall stay at home in her condition of blood purification for 33 days. She shall not touch any consecrated thing. Anything holy, she cannot touch it. Don't lay a finger on anything holy. Nor can she enter the sanctuary, meaning among the assembly of the holy, until she's cleansed. This law just proved the letter of the law, but what the law was saying, what it was saying, is that womankind, even in the things that they do naturally, because it's fall, they're unclean. And anything consecrated or set apart or holy, even dwelling among the congregation of the righteous, you cannot do. Because you're unclean. You cannot come near anything holy like the tree of life was in the garden. You can't even stand in the assembly of the godly until you are cleansed by blood. Specifically, lamb blood. These sacrifices, we know, foreshadowed Christ. The uncleanliness of the woman that made her unclean and unable to dwell in the holiness of consecrated things in the assembly of the righteous is mankind. Because mankind is unclean. And if mankind came anywhere near anything consecrated or holy, they would defile it. Just like they did with all of the creation under the sun. That's why God got purified all with fire. That's why the scripture said Christ came to reconcile all things back to the Father. Because when mankind fell, it defiled everything holy. And because of our sin, everything dies and decays. We can't come near the tree of life, that holy thing, with that holy fruit, until we cleansed. We can't even assemble ourselves among the godly angels until we're cleansed. That cleansing came in Christ, and that was proven in the law. So the Lord said, vengeance is his. The calamity of the wicked will come upon them when they least expect it. And the apostle said in the book of, let's see here, Romans. No, not Romans. I believe it's 1 Corinthians. I quoted it earlier. Let me pull it back up. 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 12, he said, what business is it of mine to judge those outside the church? Meaning when evildoers in the world do evil stuff, when they rob, when they steal, when they kill, when they flee cops, when they rape, when they do anything evil, it's none of the Christians' business to judge the matter. We don't have the power or the authority to judge them, cast them into prison, excommunicate them, make them anything. We leave that for the sword of God and for God to judge them himself. So if because of their evil, they have an interaction with the sword of God and they decide to resist God's sword, because God's sword didn't come to kill him immediately. God sent his sword to simply arrest the brother, but he resisted God. And since he resisted God again and took no account of the damage he could possibly do to God's sword, meaning the police, in his actions of evil, God took his life. From the woman's standpoint, it was an accident. From God's standpoint, it was on purpose. For he don't make mistakes. Nothing's an accident. So the apostle said, what business is of mine to judge those outside the church? Are you not to judge those inside? See, if this was a Christian and they had elders, spiritual men, first of all, they would have been taught this very principle that the apostle taught us in Romans 13, which is what I come to remind you guys about. The example of Daunte Wright is to teach you how not to live, and it shows you what the apostle said to be true. Romans 13, verse 1, it said, every person to be subject to the governing authorities. For there is no authority except from God. God appointed that woman to be there. God appointed them other officers that was there that day to be there, or else they would have never been there. For there is no authority except from God, and those which exist are established by God. Therefore, whoever resists, like this brother did, the authority has opposed the ordinance of God. So when they told him, hey, turn around, let me arrest you, you got a warrant out, what he was supposed to have done was turn around and let them handcuff him and let them take him to jail because he did do wrong, and he know the wrong he did. But instead of confessing his fault, instead of letting the Lord chastise him so that he would learn holiness and obedience, instead he resisted God and resisted his authorities that came to punish him. And those who have opposed, meaning the ordinance of God, will receive condemnation upon themselves. And the Lord didn't lead the apostle to say what kind of condemnation. Sometimes you just get beat. Sometimes they roughhouse you and you might get some scars because they had to throw you on the ground because you was resisting. Sometimes you may die. He didn't say what kind of condemnation. He just said you're going to bring it. The Lord decides what kind of judgment will come upon you that day when you decide to resist the authorities. For rulers are not a cause of fear for good behavior, but for evil behavior. Just like that with that military guy that got pepper sprayed in his face. Now he's suing him. And everybody's like, see, so that's what we talking about. You can't trust the cops. Nobody's focusing on what the military guy was doing. They were giving him commands and he was refusing to obey it. Acting all slow. No, what for, guys? What for? They ain't asked you to have a conversation with them about what for. They were giving you commands. And he wasn't listening. He was being hard-headed. God decided not to kill him that day. God decided to put some pepper spray in his eyes and roughhouse him a little bit. Maybe next time he will learn to obey. God had mercy on him. God showed no mercy on this brother. For rulers are not a cause of fear for good behavior, but for evil. Do you want to have no fear of the authority, black community? Do what is good, what's truly good. Meaning fear God and keep his commandments. Live upright. Do what is good, and you will have praise from the same. They'll be like, this man's an honorable citizen. This woman's an honorable citizen. But if you're doing evil, because here's the thing, guys, that all of us must take account. When you do evil, the Lord doesn't visit you or bring vengeance all the time the way you did evil. The way that he pays you back isn't always a perfect one-to-one relation to the thing that you did. Like, for example, if you was going around sleeping with all the girls, he may not visit you through giving you AIDS or HIV or some sexually transmitted disease that you can say, yeah, that was because of what I was doing here. He may not do it that way. He may visit you through having your car lunged from the side of the road, flip upside down 8 times. So you have to get legs amputated. And because your legs are gone, you can't go about house to house, sleeping with all the females. When the men of Sodom wanted to sleep with the men that they thought were regular men and didn't realize those men were angels, the Lord didn't strike their genitals because they were homosexuals. He didn't strike their genitals. He gave them blindness. So the Lord, when he visits a person, he doesn't always come the way of the main evil that they're doing. He visits you in many ways. When the people worshiped idols in the wilderness, God didn't visit them by sending out lightning and striking the idol. So they'd be like, yeah, we shouldn't be idolaters, because look, God sent down fire and destroyed the idol we were worshiping. How did he visit them? He shook the earth in his wrath and opened it up through earthquake and swallowed them. No relation to the idol thing that they were doing. Yet he visited them a different way because of what they were doing with the idols. So what should that cause a man to do? Fear God, keep his commandments. Be careful how you walk and live. The reason why I'm saying this is because in the black community, among people that I grew up with, they do all manner of evil. Using drugs, unlawful sex, threatening folks, insulting folks, all kind of stuff. Well, he's suing because he's trying to get paid, and he think he was wrongly done. So he didn't learn in that sense. What I said was, the next interaction, if he has another interaction, like another stop by police, what happened to him the time before that will come through his mind. He'll remember, and that will hopefully cause him to listen next time. The sue thing is something else, but nevertheless, the Lord visits people in unconventional ways that seemingly is unrelated to the actual evil that they've done. And so they're stealing, they're looting right now. Think about this. The people that are stealing, if God was to visit them, those that's looting, and we've seen this in the last time there was riots in Minnesota. There were people that went in the store, they went to steal shoes. God didn't visit them through judgment by having the shoes taken away or having them lose the shoe. So they'd be like, dang it, I stole the shoe, now I lost it. Yeah, God visited me, oh my gosh. No. Some of them were stealing shoes, and the cops told them, hey, put it down, stop it. They ended up getting tased, beat up, or shot. Or the calamity didn't come through the cops at all. They could have been running down the street and had a heart attack. Or they could have ran down the street and somebody else in the neighborhood that were also black saw the kind of shoes that they had, maybe it was Jordans, and fought them and then killed them because that person wanted the shoe. As we know, is prone to happen in the black community, people dying over Jordans. The Lord will bring calamity where you least expect it. People that have unlawful sex, they buy condoms trying to bypass the chance of catching the plague of disease. Women who want to have unlawful sex take birth control to try to stop themselves from having babies so they continually do evil but don't have the effects of their evil. And while they think they're circumventing God, they don't know that by taking that pill, they destroy other parts of their bodies. And they might not get to having a baby. They may not have a baby. So in their mind, the pills are working. So they continue in their evil. But what they don't know is by them continuing to take those pills, it tears up their liver. And they end up dying from liver failure. Or one day they misdiagnose themselves and overdo something and OCD. So fear God, keep his commandments. The Lord put that fear of him in those that are his people as he promised in the New Testament. And for us, when it comes to outsiders, we really should just stay silent. None of you should get emotionally involved, start sharing these photos, carrying on amongst each other when God judges those outside for their evils. You might not like it. You might have thought that it shouldn't happen that way. He didn't deserve to die. But you're a child of light. You should think from the lens of your Father. Now, thinking through the lens of your Father and realizing how he views evil, did he deserve to die? Truly. You might not want to say it, but we all know what the truth is. Because it also applied to us. But he had mercy on us. So from God's standpoint, who moved those officers, who took that brother's life, he deserved to die because of his sin. God brought justice. We should not be upset with that. He judges those outside. But he gives you mercy by saying, y'all judge among yourselves. So you don't have to fall into the hands of an angry God. Don't live an evil life. You underage, you shouldn't have guns anyway. Who are you going to use it on? Since you're supposed to follow Christ's example and not threaten anybody and not retaliate against anyone and not to insult anybody. So what do you need one for? Unless you're going hunting to kill some animals. You shouldn't have it. You judge among yourselves and live uprightly, then you won't have to worry about falling to the hands of the living God. You'll have the righteous to smite you, and it'll be for your good. But if you live evil lives, he's giving you plenty of examples. Sodom and Gomorrah, the flood during Noah's time, Judas, the thief on the cross that didn't believe, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. I forgot the other brother that was just jogging, quotation mark. Daunte Wright, and the list goes on and on and on. All these examples God gives to show you how not to live, to fear God, not to resist the powers. Do what they say. You shouldn't be afraid if you live in upright. Your heart won't beat fast if you're obeying the law when you see the cops. They share it on the news all the time. You think it's going on all day long. These are rare occurrences. In stat-wise, these are rare occurrences. Out of all the traffic stops and stuff, these type of incidences are rare occurrences in comparison. So don't become emotionally involved when God brings the calamity upon the wicked. Obviously, his family's hurting. God brought the pain. Because I want to show this. Because this is the epitome of what happens. Where is it? Let me find it right quick. And then I'll end this. Let's see. Here we go.
Outrage boiling over in Minnesota. With tensions already high during the Derek Chauvin murder trial, now new anger sparked when a police officer fatally shot.
Look at these young men and what they're doing. Now, they believe they're justified because they're protesting, they're upset. But what they're doing is evil. The car they're jumping on is the sword of God's car. The disrespect they're showing is against the sword of God. What they're doing is disrespecting God.
A black man Sunday during a traffic stop in Brooklyn Center,
They're all guilty
a
of evil.
Minneapolis suburb just 10 miles away from where George Floyd was killed. Police say the man had a warrant out for his arrest, and when officers tried to take him into custody, he got back into his vehicle. Then one officer shot him. Relatives identify the man as 20-year-old Daunte Wright and say that after he was shot...
No, this is what I'm saying. On the news, they show you these kind of pictures to make the image seem, oh, this is just an innocent young black man who, look at him, he's with a baby.
He drove several blocks before crashing his car.
He said they pulled him over because he had air fresheners hanging from him in there.
Frustration mounting quickly.
Daunte, he was a good kid, and just like George Floyd, it doesn't matter what you do, you don't deserve to be murdered.
Police and
I wanted to show that. That's the epitome of the issue in black communities. Y'all refuse. After God keeps sending calamity after calamity after calamity after calamity, you refuse to tell the truth. You still want to lie. So he sends more calamity and more calamity and more calamity, and then y'all continue to keep lying to yourself and to others. Had a warrant out for his arrest. Good people don't have warrants out for their arrest for doing evil. Gun underage. Good people don't do that. Criminals do that. Fleeing the police. Good, respectful people don't do that. Resistant, insubordinate, rebellious people do that. Girlfriends and boyfriends. Good people don't do that. Corrupt people do that. For that's unlawful and not acceptable in God's sight. Those immersed in the hip-hop industry with all that filth are not good people. They're corrupt people. And they do corrupt stuff and they support corruptness. Those who have babies out of wedlock, they're not good people. They're corrupt people. And what they did was evil. It was not lawful in the eyesight of God. Yet when they continue to do evil and bring about the calamity, you still say they were a good person. He didn't do nothing, and just like George Floyd. Of course, they had to play that clip because of the court case that's going on right now in Minnesota. He didn't deserve to be murdered. The law will prove whether this is like involuntary murder or anything like that. And whatever be will be. But the ultimate judge made a decision that day. He brought down the gavel. He brought down certain death because of the evil that person was in and continued to be in and was committing at the time of his death. He died in sin. This is the example of how we should not live. We should fear God, keep his commandments. To his family, obviously, as Christians, we don't wish death upon anybody. But as God's minister, we're here to tell you the reality of the situation. Daunte was just one example. You're going to have to meet the same creator one day. And if you're in the midst of sin, great calamity will come upon you. You ought to repent. You ought to be washed and cleansed because you're corrupt. You're calling evil good. That's corrupt. You're a hater of God, and he's going to destroy all those that hate him. But he shows mercy to those that love him and keep his commandments. And he's shown great mercy by sending Jesus Christ, who majority of people in this world have heard, but you got a distorted view of him. You got a distorted image with the fake white one. You got a distorted image with that fake black one. You got a distorted image with the crazy doctrines and the fact that you don't hear these type of teachings from those that's supposed to be spiritual guides. Instead, they join hands with you to walk out there to call evil good. And then act like they're servants of God. Those men are going to destroy your life. The fake women pastors, those women, they're going to destroy your life. But if you fear God, confess your faults, and believe on Jesus Christ of Nazareth, who's God manifest in the flesh, who lived perfectly, who died for the sins of mankind, for those that will believe on him, and not only died, but rose and conquered death, being immortalized in the flesh, that those that believe on him will also be immortalized in the flesh, will also be made perfect, also die to sin, and to the corruption of Satan and the evil powers that you can't see that influence you every day. For all those that call on the name of the Lord will be saved. You must die to this life. You must give up this life and live for righteousness in the faith of Christ. Or else, even greater calamity than being shot to death will come upon you. The cop only destroyed Daunte's body. But who he's meeting now will destroy both his body and his soul. You should fear God, the one you will meet next, and live upright. Don't follow the propaganda on the TV. Evildoers run that. And they're moved by angelic powers in the unseen world that they don't even realize they're enslaved to. Angelic forces are trying to keep you in anger and in bitterness. They're the ones that's exaggerating, since exaggeration is not the truth. And since that's not the truth, it's a lie. And that comes from the prince of darkness, the devil. The devil moves these people to exaggerate stories and give you untrue fake news, to move your emotions in a certain direction, to have you constantly in frustration. And then you retaliating according to the flesh. You don't understand you being moved by angelic forces. But Christ came to set you free from their grasp. And that's the message for today. And for Christians, let this be an example of how not to live. Don't do evil. You won't have to worry about having an encounter with the cop where they tell you get out, you're under arrest. Keep your tags up to date, since that's lawful and good. Keep your insurance on your vehicle. Don't drive without your license. Don't drive with an expired one. Obey the rules of the land. They're for your good and for your safety. But if you do evil and they stop you and you decide to resist and you get shot or hemmed up or beat up that day, realize you brought the calamity upon yourself. And that's why the apostle warned all the Christians. For it's a good thing to suffer righteously being innocent, but there's no reward in suffering when you did evil. I'm going to leave you there, brothers and sisters. Pray y'all listen. Don't follow this propaganda. Don't share those posts. Stay away from that stuff. God has made this decision. Y'all arguing with each other and trying to figure out the difference between tasers and guns. Ain't going to do nothing. Stay out of it. The Lord judges those outside. You judge among yourselves. All right? Let's go ahead and end it. Check 1 2 1 2. Let me just make sure this is working for y'all. Yo, what's going on? It's Brotha J podcast.
Brotha J podcast.
Brotha J apologetics, let's go. 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 Brotha J apologetics, let's go.
Brotha J podcast.